Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about a type of chord which you may have heard of and may be familiar with, but it's a type of chord that's sometimes a little bit misunderstood, and I thought it was worth taking the time to shoot a video and explain exactly what is going on with this type of chord. The chord in question is a suspended chord, sometimes just abbreviated to a sus chord. Now, most people's introduction to sus chords is the sus 4. Very often through the same song, through Crazy Little Thing Called Love by Queen, which starts off on a little sequence that alternates between a D major chord and a D sus 4. Yeah, that sequence, you recognise that. That's a D sus 4 chord. Got quite a nice sound. But what I want to do is take a step back, because a sus 4 chord is a type of suspended chord. As people often just refer to like sus 4 chord as a sus chord, but that's not actually quite the case. I'm going to be a little bit pedantic and explain what's going on. So let's go back to basics and look at the basics behind chord construction and harmonizing a scale out in chords. Taking a major key and harmonizing it out in triads. If you're not completely familiar with the theory behind this, I'll put a link in the information section down there. I've done other videos talking about chord construction, so I'll give you a link to another video about the basics of chord construction. But if you take a major key and you harmonize it out in triads, we get something that looks like this. So the formula of the triads always got a root note. Sometimes it's a third degree, sometimes it's a flat third. Always got some sort of fifth degree. Generally it's a normal fifth, sometimes it's a flat 5. The reason for that is we sometimes have to play a minor chord or a diminished chord so that the notes of that chord are diatonic to the key, that they belong to the key that we're harmonizing. We only use the notes from the key. So in the key of C major, well, let's play it by way of an example. We've got a C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and then B diminished. And that takes you back to C major again. Those chords, like I say, all have a first, a third and a fifth. They're basic triads. Now, what a suspended chord is, in its most primitive sense, is a chord where we suspend the third. The third is removed, if you like. Suspended it in the sense of not being present. It doesn't mean suspended in the sense of like hanging halfway between the first and the fifth, which some people think it means. No, suspended means it's not there. So a suspended chord only has a first and a fifth degree. So if we look at the key of C major, these are the triads that we've got in terms of like the basic triads. But if we look at them in terms of suspended chords, get rid of the third degree, we only have 1s and 5s. Apart from the 7th degree where we've got 1 and a flat 5. That's a chord you're probably already familiar with, but didn't realise it was a suspended chord. It's actually a lot easier to play than it is to pronounce. The suspended chord, 1 and a 5, that's the power chord, isn't it? We're talking about playing a root degree and a fifth degree. That's a power chord. Actually, let's have some dirt. One and a 5, possibly with an octave on the top, gives us a power chord. So a power chord literally is a suspended chord. It's a 1 and a 5, no third degree. And then we go from there into the world of sus 2 and sus 4 chords, where what we're doing is we're adding a second or a fourth degree in there. So in the case of, let's start with sus 4, because that's the kind of, as I say, people's kind of gateway drug to sus chords is the D sus 4. If you look at the chords that we've got available in the key of C major, it's just as basic triads. Get rid of the third degree and replace it with a fourth. I've got a chord with the formula 1, 4 and 5. A couple of exceptions there. The fourth chord, it's a 1, a sharp 4 and a 5. because if you think about what happens in the key of C major, the fourth degree is F, the fourth degree of F is B flat. So to make that diatonic, we raise the B flat up by a semitone to B, so that fourth degree becomes a sharp 4. And in the case of the 7th chord, we can use the fourth degree. The seventh degree of C major is B, the fourth degree of B is E, but the 5th degree of B is F sharp, and we need to lower the F sharp down to an F natural, so that gives us a 1, 4 and a flat 5. So those are strictly the diatonic sus4 chords. What does that mean? Well, it basically means that any way you could play, for argument's sake, a D minor triad when you're playing in the context of C major. You've got a D minor triad on the 2nd degree. You could, if you wanted, to play a D sus4. It's still going to be diatonic. It's still going to be functioning, if you like, as the 2 chord of C major. Anyway, you're playing an E minor in the context of a key of C major, you could also play an E sus4, because that's still functioning as some type of 3 chord, because it's got the E as the root note, but it's got a different kind of sound because it's got a 1, 4 and a 5 as opposed to a 1, flat 3 and a 5 that you would get in the minor triad. Hope that makes sense. So those are the suspended 4th chords, and this is kind of where I need to talk about the naming. People often think of a sus4 chord as being a suspended chord, and it's not. It's a type of suspended chord, and it's about the phrasing. We talk about, argument's sake, a D sus4, almost like it's D as is the root note, and then sus4 is the type of chord. And really it's not. It's D is the root note, sus to say it's a suspended chord, i.e. there's no 3rd degree, 4, that's the kind of the alteration, the thing that we're adding to the sus chord. So it's not a sus4 chord, it's a sus 4 chord, a sus chord with a 4th. It's really minor pedantic detail, but it's kind of, you need to be aware that a sus chord and a sus4 chord are different kind of things. Now, as well as sus4 chords, we've also got sus2. What's a sus2? Well, it's basically a sus chord, a suspended chord, a 1st and a 5th degree, but we're going to add in the 2nd. Basically, we've got three notes we can have between the 1st and the 5th. We've already looked at the 3rd, that's in the basic triad. If we looked at the 4th, that's a sus4 chord, or we could have a sus2, where we have a suspended chord and an added 2nd. And that's got quite a nice sound. So thinking about that example we had with D major to D sus4 before, you've also got the option to go to a sus2, where we take the 3rd degree and lower it to a 2nd. Yeah, the sus2 chord's got a really nice sound. And thinking about it in terms of harmony, let's look at the chords of C major again with the basic triads. Get rid of the 3rd degree and put a 2nd degree in there as well. And here we've got basically C major harmonized out in sus2 chords. Again, generally speaking, it's 1, 2 and 5. It's the same formula on all of those chords. There's not the distinction between the chords that would normally be major and the chords that would normally be minor, because there's no 3rd or flat 3rd degree. But a couple of exceptions, things to notice, is the 3rd degree. We've got E sus flat 2, because the 2nd degree of E is F sharp. F sharp doesn't belong to the key of C major, but F does, so we lower that F sharp down by a semitone to F. So that's a flat 2nd chord. Therefore, it's got the formula 1, flat 2 and 5. And also again on the 7th degree, the 2nd degree of B is C sharp. So it gets lowered by a semitone to give us C natural. So that chord there's got the formula 1, flat 2, flat 5. That's to keep it strictly diatonic. Now, there's nothing to say that, for argument's sake, if you're playing in the key of C major, you couldn't play an E sus2, or you could play an F sus4 if you wanted, rather than using a sus flat 2 or sus sharp 4. What I'm showing you there is the things that are strictly diatonic. Outside notes are okay, but you need to understand that by playing outside notes you get certain tensions that you wouldn't normally get because you're straying away from something that's strictly diatonic. You basically understand the rules, and then you can start to bend them a little bit. But to be strictly diatonic, some of those sus2 and sus4 chords are sus flat 2 or sus sharp 4. You get the idea. So where would you use these types of chords? Well, thinking about the basic suspended chord, like I said, the example I use as the power chord, the 1, 5 and octave type chord, ubiquitous in hard rock and various other styles. So as the basic suspended chord, that's where you would use it, I think, in a hard rock type of context as a power chord. Sus2s and sus4s, where you would use those, you could use them in place of their parallel triad. Like I said before, you could use a D sus2 or a D sus4 in place of just a D minor triad in the key of C major, or a C major triad as the one chord. You could play a C sus4 or a C sus2. Why? It's just, it gives you a different sound. You've got a minor chord, it's got a particular sound, say like a D minor chord. But if you could just play that as a D sus2, D sus4, all I'm playing there are types of D chord, D minor, D sus2, D sus4. I'm not actually moving around through a chord progression, but I'm getting a little bit of variety. So you can use like the suspended chords to give you a bit of variety. They're also really useful if you want to work through key changes. Interesting thing about a suspended chord is they don't have third degrees. So they don't say whether they're major or minor. So let's think about the chords in the key of C major, for example. We start from a C major chord. The second chord of that is D minor. So if you see a D minor chord, it's functioning as the 2 chord of C major, or it's functioning as the 3 chord of B flat major, or it's functioning as the 6 chord of F major, because that's where you get a D minor chord. And if I wanted to affect a key change, for argument's sake, from C major to D major, but I didn't want to make it a really obvious key change, I wanted to kind of blend from one key to the other. I could start off, say I'm playing in the key of C major with C major diatonic chords like C major, A minor, G major, D minor. Then I could go, say, around D minor, D sus2, D sus4, D major, A major. So I've made the transition there from key of C major to the key of D major. I started off with chords that are diatonic to the key of C major, played some chords that are a bit ambiguous. They could belong to a number of different keys. Then from there, D major, A major, and we're now in the key of D major. That's just one example, but what I wanted to cover in this video primarily is just clear up any misunderstanding about what sus chords are. The idea that you can say sus and you mean sus2 or sus4. No, a sus2 or a sus4 chord is a type of suspended chord. Sus 1 and 5, sus2 1, 2 and 5, sus4 1, 4 and 5. Like I say, if you're not totally familiar with the theory behind chord construction and harmonizing keys out in triads and whatnot, I'll put links in the information section. And once you're comfortable with that and you've got your head around what suspended chords are, look for opportunities to take chords, remove the third degree and replace it with a second or a fourth. All the examples I've shown here have just been based around basic triads, but you could extend that to other types of chords. For argument's sake, seventh chord, we've got a major 7 here. I could do major 7 sus4. Interestingly, that's a major 7 sus4. Now remember I said there's a bit of ambiguity about sus chords because you haven't got the third degree. So how can I say that that's a major 7 sus4? If it's a suspended chord, how can I say it's major? Well, I've taken the chord and extended it to include a major 7th degree. It's got a natural 7th in there, so that's a major 7 chord. 1, 3, 5, 7. 1, 4, 5, 7. It must be a major 7 sus4 because it's got a major 7 in it. If I'd taken a dominant 7 chord and replaced the 3rd with a 4th, that's a 7 sus4. It's like a dominant 7 chord, but it's got a 4th degree. So dominant 7th, dominant 7 sus4, major 7, major 7 sus4. Yeah, it's all quite logical when you think about it. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a bit of a better understanding about suspended chords, and hopefully will inspire you to experiment with how you can use them in your own chord progressions, and taking existing chord progressions and possibly replacing existing chords with suspended chords to give you new sounds and new feelings and whatnot, rather than just sticking with just the basic chords. Okay, if you enjoyed the video, please click like down there. If you really enjoyed it and you want to see other videos that are posted on the channel, then please click subscribe, which is also down there, and click the bell icon, because that makes sure that you're notified anytime I upload any new videos onto the channel. You're welcome to leave a comment, but I don't always see comments that are left on videos. So if there's something specific you want to ask me, whether it's about music theory, guitar playing, guitar equipment, anything at all, you're better off going here, filling that form in, send your question in that way. I'm guaranteed to see it, and I can get around to answering it in a future video. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.